equipment, your car. Autocross isn't tough on your car. You can participate near home, and all you really need is a driver's license and a helmet. There are classes for almost every type of car, and it can be a very rewarding sport. Believe me, it's a lot of fun when you win in an autocross. Hi, I'm Dick Turner, Chairman of National Academy for Professional Driving. In the next hour, we're going to show you the techniques necessary to win in the sport of autocross. If you really want to get to 100%, it's going to take a lot of work. Most people can get to 90% of what is necessary to win. The next 5% is tough, and those last 5% are really tough. We're going to give you the pieces to the puzzle necessary to become a national champion. In fact, many of our students have done exactly that. We'll be using 3 automobiles in our demonstrations. The first is the Acura Integra. This car is equipped with parts from the Mugen Competition Parts Division of American Honda Motor Company. Included are a body kit, exhaust header and silencer system, sport dampers, and wheels. This is a front-engine, front-drive car with a standard 5-speed transmission. The second car is our other front-drive example, the Honda CRX. This is also a front-engine, front-drive car that you may recognize as the Mugen Pro car from the cover of the Mugen Performance catalog. I wish everybody could get a chance to drive this car because it's a real kick. Like the Integra, it has a standard transmission with 5 speeds. Our third car is a Chevrolet IROC Z28 Camaro. We have purposely used the convertible so you can see hand motion and what we are doing in the automobile. This car is V8 powered, front engine, rear drive, and is equipped with an automatic transmission. We've chosen the BF Goodrich CompTA R1 tire to use on all 3 cars. This is a special autocross tire that is shaved to 4/32 of an inch tread depth at the crown and 3/32 of an inch tread depth at the shoulders. For our demonstrations, we will be using the Time Track system. The system will be administered by Mr. Strick Heilman. The Time Track units are completely remote controlled and will give us timing to the thousandths of a second, and they are also capable of giving us either a display on a board or a readout from a printer. One of the greatest tools to come along in years for an autocrosser or anyone else who wants to know more about a car's performance is the G-Analyst. It's a product of Valentine Research from Cincinnati, Ohio, and we feel it is such a significant advance in providing data that we'll be using them on all 3 of our automobiles. The unit is totally self-contained and can be installed in about 5 minutes. It comes with batteries already in the head, and all you do is plug it in the cigarette lighter. A G-Analyst monitors the various motions of a car. It can tell us launch pressure and measure stopping and cornering forces. Perhaps the best feature is the fact that the G-Analyst stores up to 8 minutes of information, so you can make a run, then replay it to find out what you're doing, where you're doing a good job, where you might do a little better, and replay it as many times as you want. There are 4 modes of display and a zoom feature. If you want to check a certain move in more detail, you can stop or repeat the action in real time or slow motion. If your hands and feet have made smooth transitions on the course, you'll see a nice smooth curve. If you've jerked your hands or missed a shift, you will immediately know where you did it and how much it affected your run. Exactly what is an autocross car? Well, it can be anything with a number on the side that's competing against other vehicles for fun, for a trophy, or perhaps for money, as in Pro Solo. You don't have to spend a lot of money to go autocrossing, but there are some adjustments you can make to your car to make it perform better. If you're planning to use your street car for autocross, you can adjust to reach a compromise between street driving and autocross performance. Or, if you're going for the ultimate situation, you can take your car closer to the limits with some various adjustments to make it strictly a competition-type vehicle. Here's Gary Darien from Performance Automotive Research Center to explain.
There are many angles in the front suspension of today's cars, but only 3 of them, camber, caster, and toe, are normally adjustable and therefore of interest to an autocrosser. Camber is the measure of how upright the tire is compared to the road. Zero camber means the tire is completely perpendicular. For positive camber, the top of the tire is tipped outward, and negative camber means the top of the tire is tipped inward. Normal road cars have from 0 to positive 1/2 degree of camber to ensure understeer under all conditions. But for autocrossing, we want to maximize the traction of the front tires in a corner, and therefore we tend to set initial negative camber sometimes as high as 3.5 degrees for optimum traction. Caster is the angle of the steering axis. For positive caster, that axis is tipped rearward. For negative caster, that axis is tipped forward. Now, most road cars have caster settings of between 2 and 4 degrees positive. Caster provides steering feel because it gives a resistance to the steering in proportion to the cornering force of the car. For autocrossing, we can go as high as 5 or 6 degrees of caster to even enhance that steering feel farther. Caster also has the side effect of inducing negative camber in the outside front tire in a tight turn for even greater traction of the front tires. Toe is a measure of where the front tires are pointing. For toe in, the tires are pointing in towards each other, and for toe out, the tires are pointing away from each other. On rear-wheel drive cars, brake drag and braking forces tend to cause the front tires to toe out, so statically there's a little bit of toe in set. On front-wheel drive cars, the driving force tends to toe in the front tires, so those cars have a static toe out setting. For autocross purposes, more toe out usually tends to enhance steering response around a pylon, so therefore going to toe out settings of as high as 1/2 of an inch can enhance autocross performance.
At an event, nothing you can do to your car on the spot will have a more profound effect than tire pressures. Timing in autocross events is done to the thousandths of a second. I have seen them won or lost by 1/1000th. A couple of pounds of tire pressure can make several thousandths difference. Each tire has its own signature or footprint. It's very important that we balance the footprint on these tires by using the proper air pressure. As a general rule, we want as little air pressure as possible to do the job. That doesn't mean a little air, and it's going to vary greatly from car to car. On a front drive car such as the Acura or CRX, front tire pressures can be at or above 50 pounds of pressure. The rear tire pressures are in the low to mid 30-pound area and seldom exceed 40 pounds of air pressure. The front tire pressures are extremely critical on front drive cars. On rear drive cars, 2 things will differ from front drive cars. First of all, there will be less of a differential from front to rear tire pressures, and the rears will usually be higher on a rear drive car than on a front drive car, while the front tire pressures will be lower on a rear drive car than on a front drive car. How do we balance tire pressures? We do what's called chalking the tires, and now we've elevated ourselves to the level of using white shoe polish. Start up on the tread face and make a mark that comes over the edge and down the sidewall approximately 1/2 inch. We don't need to completely cover a tire, but we want to put 3 or 4 different marks on the tire. And before we test these tires, there are 2 real important pieces of equipment you'll need.
Tire pressure is very critical for an autocross car, and having a good gauge helps in determining the right tire pressure for your tires. A gauge like this is very good. It has a rubber guard around the face, a remote hose for easy checking of the pressure no matter where on the tire the valve stem is, and a valve to bleed the pressure down to the proper pressure. But no matter which gauge you use, make sure you always use the same gauge, because gauge-to-gauge variations can cause you problems in setting your tires. The tire pyrometer is a thermocouple device used for measuring the temperature of the tire tread just below the surface of the tire. Start in the shoulder rib and insert the probe approximately 1/16 of an inch below the surface of the tire. Then quickly move to the center rib and then insert the probe into the inside rib of the tire.
If you really want to balance the pressure of your tires, it would be nice to make a 200-foot diameter circle and, with the tires chalked, run around the circle, turning to the left and to the right. If your car is a left-drive car, you're going to be able to go a little faster to the left. Run the car in the highest possible gear. By doing this, it gives you the least available change by pushing on the accelerator. We want to be able to barely creep up on the tractive limits of the tires, and by using the highest possible gear, we then have the least amount of available power. And as we approach the limit of adhesion of the tires, one end of the car or the other will begin to slip. By adjusting tire pressures up or down, we can reach the optimum limit for that car under those conditions on that day. Let's watch as Gary Darien balances some tire pressures.
210, 200, 170.
The idea is to get the readings as close together as possible.
160, 150, 130. 62, 42. The ambient temperature today is 97 degrees.
I've got the numbers, Gary.
What was your peak and average?
The peak was 1.01, average 0.96.
Thank you. Let's drop the pressure to 52 and re-chalk and run it again. We're set.
Ready with your numbers here.
What was the peak and average?
The peak was 1.03 and the average was 1.01.
Hey, that's great. Thanks.
Once you travel around the circle and measure your pressures, balance them from side to side. Take the tire that needs the most amount of air and add that same amount of air to both tires, in other words, the left front and the right front. It will allow good, smooth handling of the automobile. The more predictability we can build into your car, the better it's going to perform.
$210, 200, 190. 180, 175, 175. 44. 44. Well, the tire's rolling over a little bit too far. We were at 44. Let's go up 5 pounds to 49.
Here's a rule of thumb for
One
adding
more.
air. For every 1/4 of an inch on the side of the tire that you wish to move the mark, add or subtract 3 pounds of air. What we want to do is get the air pressure where we want it. Now the car will be quite neutral, meaning when the front end starts to slip, the rear end will also start to slip, and you know you're at the limits of adhesion. We don't want the car where the nose violently slips or the tail violently slips.
$210, $210, $205. $190, $185, $180. $49.5. $45.
The sound of your tires can tell you a lot about the performance of your car. With street tires, such as the Comp TAR1s, you want to hear the tire squeal in a corner, but not squall. Listen to the difference between squeal and squall. These tires are now squalling, and they're not doing anything but making noise. We've gone beyond the peak tractive limit and the usefulness of the tires, and all we're doing is turning money into noise. When you're ready to compete, your seat belt needs to be tight. A little trick to try is to plug the belt in, then pull on the top strap, unfasten the belt, twist it 3 or 4 times, then reconnect it. This will keep your body tight in the seat. Another handy little device we've invented is called the Autocross belt. The belt adjusts so it fits around the back of your seat and your upper chest. It's fastened with Velcro with a tab for easy removal in any situation. Be sure you understand it does not replace the seat belt and should never be used alone. Also, don't ever use this in an open-top car without a cage in it. When driving a car, it's important to have your seat in the proper position. You should feel comfortable and fully able to control your car. You don't want to be so close that your arms are bound up in a tight corner. Nor do you want to be so far away from the wheel that you simply can't do the job. Try this method for measuring the proper distance to the wheel. With your body against the seat, extend your arms near the top of the wheel. Your wrists should touch the wheel. Then grasp the wheel and you're in your proper driving position with plenty of freedom to drive, yet close enough to make precise moves. Another very important piece to the puzzle is the helmet. In an autocross car, I wear an open-face helmet. If you're driving a Formula car, you should definitely wear a full coverage helmet to prevent debris from the surface from hitting you in the face. Make sure you get the strap tight. With a loose strap, in an emergency, the helmet would simply slide off my head. Be sure to get that strap tight before you go to work. There are only 3 things a car can do. It can go, it can stop, and it can turn. In autocross, go usually means launch or accelerate off a corner. Stop means brake, and turn means steer. The launch is very important. Here's a great place to gain or lose precious thousandths of a second in the first 20 feet. We want to launch the car and keep it at the highest possible G-loading. How do we do that? In a car with a standard transmission, it's a combination of engine RPM and clutch speed. With the G analyst in the car, we can find the highest possible G we can pull on the launch. With a two-wheel drive car, if you can launch at 0.6 to 0.65 G, you're really getting after it, because you only have 2 of those 4 tires doing all the work. We want to come up to the line, bring the car up to the proper launch RPM, hold those RPMs, don't go up and down on the accelerator, bring the clutch out, and launch the car. The RPMs will drop down. We then squeeze the accelerator, don't pounce on it, and the car now accelerates under full power. That's the best launch we can get. There's no better combination. There are basically 3 ways a car can launch. You can do it properly, you can bog the engine, or you can burn the tires. To make a proper launch, bring the RPMs up to a steady position. With the Acura, 5,000 RPMs on this particular surface, with this tire, on this day, gave us the best launch. The time, 0.945 seconds, and a maximum G reading of 0.54 G. Here's a bog. The RPMs are too low. 0.35 Gs versus 0.54 with a proper launch. And the time of 1.218 seconds compared to 0.945, an extra 273 thousandths of a second. Remember, I mentioned I've seen events won and lost by only 2 thousandths. Now let's see what burning the tires or spinning them will do. As you can see, all we really did was make noise and smoke. The launch was not as bad as a bog, but it still cost us an extra 208 thousandths of a second. That's a lot of time in a competitive event. With an automatic transmission, an improper launch can make just as big a difference. The rear tires are spinning before the car leaves the line, and the time is 1.223 seconds at 0.5 G. There is a tremendous savings when the car leaves the start smoothly. Time 1.174 seconds versus 1.223. 49 thousandths faster and a higher G. Now that we've seen the best way to go, let's take a look at stop. Most people do one of 2 things in autocross cars. They either brake too hard or too easy. Most brake too soon for the corner. Today, tire efficiency has gone up so much, we can stop much harder than we think. Let's take a look at what happens under braking. The best stopping is at the point of incipient skid, or just before the tires begin to slip on the surface. How do we feel the point of incipient skid? We have to develop that feel. We have to start with a known. The known is the sound of the tires just prior to sliding. That sound is a nice, even squeal, not a squall. Let's place a pylon where the car stopped. Now we'll slide the car to a stop. Not very pretty. Made lots of noise, flat spotted some tires, and it took us farther to stop the car. Let's look at that again from another angle. It's very important to realize that once you lock your tires, you have no more steering control. The car is going to slide basically straight ahead if you lock the tires. Our old friend Isaac Newton is going to reach out, grab the car, and pull it right straight off the course if you happen to be trying to make a corner with the tires locked. If you're an advanced autocrosser, you've probably learned to left foot brake. If you're driving a standard transmission car, we strongly recommend you do not left foot brake in the street. Only when you put on your helmet should the left foot go in front of the brake. If you're relatively new at this sport or never tried left foot braking, here's the proper movement using the right foot for the accelerator and the brake. As long as the steering wheel is straight, we can be heavy on the brakes. Once we begin steering into the corner, we need to pull our foot off the brake slowly. As we begin to steer out, we can move the foot to the gas pedal, and once the steering wheel is straight, we can squeeze the gas all the way down. Think about having a rope tied from your foot to the steering wheel. When you turn the wheel, your foot is pulled up, or you're trailing off the brake. As you straighten out, you can add acceleration, and when your drive tires are pointed straight ahead, you can get full acceleration. This means with the front drive cars, you can accelerate just a bit sooner than the rear drive cars. Remember that as you steer away from straight ahead, you create a braking force on the front tires without actually using the mechanical brakes. So if you're already at the point of incipient skid, you must release some braking pressure as you go into the corner. It's interesting to hear people say left foot braking really makes no difference. Let's look at the mechanical aspects. Under acceleration, your foot is down hard on the accelerator and the car's nose is high. When the foot comes off the accelerator and moves to the brake pedal, the nose has to drop. The speed of your foot is an important function. How quickly it gets to the pedal and how well it is positioned makes a big difference. From that standpoint, wouldn't it be easier if your left foot was already there in front of the pedal? Then all you have to do is push straight down. By left foot braking, we control the car better and actually stop faster or slow cornering speed in less time and less distance. Just before the right foot comes off the accelerator, the left foot begins braking. We're only talking about a couple tenths of a second difference, so we can control the downward pressure on the front tires of the car. By left foot braking, we get one downward movement rather than having the nose bob up and down while your right foot is making that move from the accelerator to the brake. Well, what about heel and toe technique? If you have a formula car set up to do this, that's one thing. But in a standard automobile, the distance between the pedals and the up and down difference in the pedals makes it pretty impractical compared with the efficiency of left foot braking. It takes a lot longer to gain speed than it does to get rid of it. Look at this demonstration. It's the average of 5 runs as far as the distance is concerned. The car accelerates from 0 to 50 miles an hour and then brakes from 50 to 0 miles an hour.
.7 inches.
It took 477 feet 6 inches to go from 0 to 50 miles an hour and only 88 feet 7 inches to go from 50 to 0. This is a big difference. And when we begin talking about corners, we'll see just how important this can be. Before we get into braking in a corner, let's take a minute to talk about turning in the purest sense. It all begins with handling the steering wheel. Here's the best way to do this.
If we begin with imagining that the steering wheel is much like the face of a clock, and the fact that this is 12 o'clock, 3, 6, and 9, we'd like to have our hands at 9 and 3 o'clock. This is a much stronger steering position than any of the others that I've seen. When we begin to make a corner, we want to imagine that we have an imaginary barrier down between 12 and 6. The left hand will stay on the left-hand side of that line, the right hand will stay on the right-hand side. For a left-hand turn, we'll begin by moving our left hand to the top of the steering wheel. As we begin to steer into the corner, we'll release with the right hand, and it will move down to take over the steering wheel when the left hand reaches 6. The right hand then pushes up, left hand comes up to take over, and you steer on into the corner, trying to end with the hands at 9 and 3 in the center of the turn. To steer out of a left-hand turn, is much the same as steering into a right-hand turn, in which case we'll move our right hand to the top of the steering wheel. As we begin to pull down with our right hand, our left hand will come down to take over. Left hand pushes up, right hand comes up to take over, and we'll find ourselves with our hands back at 9 and 3 when the steering wheel is again straight. For a right-hand turn, we're going to move our right hand to the top of the steering wheel. Now, when we grab hold of the steering wheel, we want a firm but gentle grip on it without getting a death grip. The first motion with the steering wheel is going to be extremely slow and gentle and smooth. As we bring our right hand down, the left hand comes down to take over, keeping the wheel in a nice fluid motion. As we bring it up, the right hand comes up to take over, and we're now at 9 and 3 in the middle of the turn. To steer out of a right-hand turn, we'll move our left hand to the top of the steering wheel, pull it down as the right hand comes down to take over, right hand pushes up until we're at 9 and 3 and we find ourselves into the straightaway.
Driving a car is a combination of many physical and mechanical elements. One of these is the position of your head. Why is it at many autocrosses we see a driver run down to the end of a straightaway, get ready to make a turn, and all of a sudden we see this? What we should do is keep our head in its normal upright position, and as we approach the corner, get our hand position proper and steer into the corner with our head in its normal position. Now that our body is under control, let's use the techniques to get our car under control on the course. There are 3 basic modes a car can operate in when it's cornering: understeer, oversteer, and neutral steer. In an understeer situation, the car takes an arc less than desired. The front tires begin to slip, and the car goes outside the pylons rather than between them. The beauty of understeer is whatever you're doing, do less of it. If you're on the gas and the car starts to slip, ease off the gas a little. If you're on the brake and the car starts to slip, ease off the brake a little. If you're steering and the car starts to slip, relax the steering a little bit and add just a bit of brake. Then you can steer back in at a slightly lower speed and eliminate the understeer. With oversteer, the car takes an arc greater than desired with the front tires. The tail gets loose, the nose tucks in, and we have a situation where sometimes we spin the car, or at best, we have to make a correction. And that costs us time on the course. If you find yourself in this position, only move your hands as fast as the car is sliding sideways. Many people move their hands too quickly and actually add to the problem rather than correct it. The third mode is neutral steer. When this happens, all 4 tires slide at approximately the same rate, but the arc gets bigger. If you find yourself in a neutral steering situation, while control is a little easier to maintain, you will need to slow down in order to re-grab the roadway or the course and get back on track. A tire has what is known as a peak tractive limit. That's the highest amount of traction that tire can get on that surface under those conditions. Whenever we go over the peak tractive limit, we have to ease off to get back to the limit, and we lose precious time. This is known as overshoot. When a tire overshoots, we can easily lose 10, 15, 20, or more % of our grip. This means we have to slow down to get back on course. We're now back at the old ingress corner again, aren't we? When considering how to drive an autocross course, the first thing you must do is walk the course. Inspect it very carefully. This is a time for deep concentration. You must know what types of turns there are and decide how you're going to take them. We want to be there. If we're over here, remember, until your rear tires go by this pylon. After you've become more experienced at it, you'll be able to rank each corner from the toughest one for you to take to the easiest one for you to take. This ranking may not be the same for you and your driving partner. You may each have a certain type turn that's your best or that's a little tougher for you to take. When talking about corners, we need to understand a very important concept, the apex. According to the dictionary, an apex is the angular summit of a curve. Here we have a curve, and we've marked the apex with a pylon. For autocrossing purposes, we're going to move that apex around and define it as the point where your car is closest to the inside of any given corner. And, depending on the type turn, we'll move it from an early apex to a late apex. There are three basic types of corners we find in an autocross: ingress, egress, and neutral. A neutral corner is defined as a constant arc of more than 160 degrees. To negotiate this turn properly, we place the pylon here and call it a late apex. This is the point where the car comes closest to the inside of the turn. The car stays out wide as it enters the corner and touches the inside of the curve at the late apex. Here's what it looks like if the car makes its apex too early. By early apexing, you have to scrub off speed sooner, and you're committed to an improper path of travel when you get to the other side of the corner. Neutral corner. A late apex, the proper way, touching the inside of the curve late in the turn. When the car is driven properly, it's a very nice flow. Here it is again, this time an early apex. Things get out of hand and valuable time is lost with the jerky move at the end of the turn. The success or failure of a turn begins in the approach. For a late apex, we want to stay wide, and as the car negotiates the turn, see how much smoother a late apex can make the turn. Here's a comparison of times. The proper way, 7.208 seconds. Improper, 7.548 seconds, for a difference of 0.340 seconds. Now let's take a look at an ingress corner. This is a turn where the straightaway we're on is longer than the straightaway we're going to. For this type of turn, we also want to take a late apex, only touching the inside of the curve late in the turn. Down the straightaway, approach the corner with the car way out wide to the right, pulling the car down slowly in this instance to a late apex, and away we go. Here's the same thing again. Ingress corner, late apex. The time, 4.821 seconds. Here's what it looks like if you take an early apex on an ingress corner. The car runs down the middle of the straight, touches the inside of the curve early, and then has to correct quickly to finish the turn. Here it is again. Touching the inside part of the usable roadway too early. See what this does to the car? Now let's see what the difference is in time. With an early apex, 5.553 seconds compared to 4.821 seconds with a late apex. The difference is 0.732 seconds. A little hard to believe, but there it is. Properly, the car is wide to the right, up against the right side pylons. Improperly, as we approach the apex, the car is in the center of the turn. Look at the difference as we approach the apex. When we do it properly, we stay wide, brake late, and take a late apex. Improperly, the car brakes early, takes an early apex, and has a devil of a time trying to get around the backside of the corner. So far, we've seen two turns that are best taken with late apexes. Here's one where an early apex does the job, an egress corner. By taking an early apex, we can get power on sooner to build as much speed as possible for the long straightaway. Here's what happens with a late apex. Let's take a look at an egress corner properly in slow motion. We approach wide, we brake early, we take an early apex, and we get on the power sooner. Here's the time, 5.556 seconds. Here's what happens with a late apex. The time, 6.072 seconds. Exactly 516 thousandths longer. Look at the difference in the path. See the difference in the apex, and look at the difference in the exit. It's easy to see why it takes more time to do it wrong. If you're going to drive autocrosses, you're going to encounter slaloms. Lots of people don't like slaloms. They kind of complain about it. This is an area where you can either preserve or lose a whole bunch of time. When you're looking at a slalom, it's nothing more than a series of turns where we have to turn right, left in one combination or another.
Oh, this is a piece of cake.
It's important to know the distance between pylons in a slalom. It's not necessary to know the exact distance between them. What's important is knowing whether the distance is getting greater between pylons or getting less. Don't let your competition know that you're pacing this. Just go out and walk along. It really doesn't make a lot of difference whether it's 29 paces or 31 steps, as long as you know it's 31 steps between the first two and perhaps 36 steps between the second two. So remember, the relationship is important, not just the exact distances. Some slaloms will have even spacing between the pylons. In this case, keep the speed constant as you drive through. There will be times when the spacing between pylons is decreasing. This means you must slow down as the car goes through. If you find the distance between pylons is increasing, the pylons are getting further apart, you can increase your speed as you drive through. Here we have a 5-cone slalom, and it's optional as to which side we go on. If there is a pylon laying down, pointing toward one side or the other, you must take it. But in this case, it's optional. To figure out where to put the car, many people start at the last pylon and count backward. Try this trick. Count the number of pylons in the slalom. If there are an even number of pylons, you enter and exit from opposite sides. If you have an odd number of pylons, you enter and exit from the same side. Just remember, even number, enter and exit from opposite sides. Odd number, enter and exit from the same side. Here we have an odd number of pylons, and therefore we want to enter on the right and exit on the right. By so doing, we've almost eliminated the last pylon from the course. Oh, it's there all right, but we really don't have to pay much attention to it. Here it is again, this time entering from the wrong side or the left side. The reason I say wrong is because when given the option, we want to go as quickly as possible to the gate at the end of the slalom. By doing the left side first, it adds an extra move to the slalom, and that means extra time. This can make a real difference when you have an option and can go either side at the first pylon. Here's another tip. How we approach the first pylon is also very important. We used to think we'd come in at a wide angle and almost eliminate the first pylon and start the slalom at pylon number 2. But we've discovered that lining up straight on the first pylon actually gives you a better time. Here is the only time when we really want to see the hands go past the imaginary line running from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Letting the hands cross over the top of the wheel and then down to 6 o'clock will give you a good smooth movement in and out of the pylons and helps keep the car in balance. Let's see what happens if we jerk the hands. It quickly becomes very obvious that it's going to take more time to get the same job done. Keep an even speed. Don't get on and off the accelerator. Look at the difference when the hand movement is smooth and the speed is steady. With a rear drive car, jumping on and off the gas will get the tail wagging, and we spend a lot of time going nowhere. Done properly, the hand movement is steady, your head stays upright, and the car moves nicely back and forth in and out of the pylons. So here's a very important thing to remember. Slow down and you'll go faster. Slow down the hands, slow down the feet, and the car will get through the slalom quicker. Another type turn is a single pylon. I like a little controversy, and there's a lot of discussion over how to run this one. Some people like to run straight up to the pylon, cut sharply around it, accelerate, and then go back where they came from. Many people think the pylon should be the center or high point of the arc. They'll run up a little wide to the right, make the turn, end up a little wide to the left, and follow through. I like to do it this way. Stay out wide, bring the car in, and the pylon becomes a very late apex situation. And there's your straight line, allowing maximum acceleration back where you came from. Now, since the name of the game is preserving time, let's see which way saves us the most. Approaching in a straight line. Six 0.274 seconds. Using the pylon as the center of the turn. 6.378 seconds. And using a late apex. 5.877 seconds. Some people think an even better way to do this is a handbrake turn. In fact, I used to think that. Looks impressive, but is it faster? The time? 7.094 seconds. Compared to any other method, using a late apex is, in this case, 397 thousandths of a second faster. Now that we have the proper path to take when turning, what about shifting in a turn? This is another very controversial area. Some say no. I say yes. Where? At the apex. Your car has plenty of brakes, so you don't need the engine to help you slow down. And at the apex, you should be in a steady state turn with nothing else going on. Here's a neutral corner. The best way to take it is power on as long as possible in a straight line, brake late. As you steer in, trail off the brake and take a very late apex. As you approach the apex, think of having a circle. You enter the circle, you're through braking, you make the shift. As you leave the circle, you're squeezing on acceleration, and as soon as your drive tires are pointed straight ahead, you can again be at 100% acceleration.
Now that we have all the elements put together,
Let's go for a ride and see what it would look like with you in the driver's seat. Let's watch from another angle. Out wide, late apex, neutral corner, very late apex, smooth on the power, out wide, the car's in control. Coming up to a big sweeper. Car is at the cornering limit. Isn't quite slipping. Nice and smooth through the slalom, close to the pylons, and yet not so close that we get into trouble. And another slalom. Just looks a little different.
There's a few common sense tips we'd like to share with you to help make your autocrossing more enjoyable and successful. A couple of things you can do before you ever leave home. One is to dress for the weather. Wear some comfortable and loose-fitting clothes. Also, the shoes you wear are very important. You want to select a pair with a thin, flexible sole so that you can feel the pedals while you're driving. And remember to always wear the same pair of shoes.
Many autocrossers try to run with a near-empty gas tank. They think the weight savings gives them an edge. I find that a near-empty gas tank can cost you valuable time when you have fuel starvation going around a long sweeper. The thing I believe in is a full gas tank. It will not cost you any time at all for the additional weight.
This may sound a little crazy, and you might want to pull your shades before you try this. But if you wear your helmet around the house, maybe even watch a little TV while you're wearing it, it will help you to get used to the feel of the helmet on your head, and more importantly, to help adapt your hearing to the different sound levels with and without your helmet on.
Before the event and in between each run, make sure that you park your vehicle where there's equal amount of shade or sunlight on all four tires. This is because unequal air pressures caused by the heating of the sun will cost you time. This car has been parked with this side facing the sun for an hour. There are 6 more pounds in each of the right side tires than the left side tires.
A good habit to get into before leaving for the track is to check under the hood. You want to make sure that all of your fluid levels are full, and you wouldn't want a frayed belt or a worn hose to ruin your best run. Another thing is to make sure that you have all the tools and the supplies that you'll need at the track.
Since we have a limited number of runs in an autocross, and we usually do not have the opportunity to drive the course in a practice session, we need to walk the course making a mental image of each corner in each succession so that we can go back and have our mental picture drawn and practice our run mentally.
David, I got a question for you.
Sure.
What do I do about these butterflies?
Well, I find myself getting a little tense before a run. The knuckles start grabbing hold of the steering wheel a little heavy. And I do this because I'm doing mental imaging of the course. What happens at that moment is I take a deep breath, squeeze like I'll get out on the steering wheel, relax consciously as I exhale, clear my mind, and then go.
Okay, I'll try it. Thanks.
Take care. It's a good idea to keep a logbook showing the course layout, the diagrams showing distances, the chassis setup, the tire pressures that you have, because the next time you come up to that same autocross facility, you'll have an advantage over anyone else. It also leaves you with a very good history of all your autocrossing.
Let's be smart and make sure that all items in the trunk are either secured or removed, such as the spare tire and the jack. And you wouldn't want to be distracted during the middle of your best run by a lot of loose objects flying around in the car. So let's do a little house cleaning first.
Now you have lots of pieces to the puzzle, but remember, only you can put them together. You may want to watch this more than once. Go out and practice, come back and watch again. Practice makes perfect, but only when the right moves are practiced. And remember, only you can put your car in first place.